Hey, Stacy here. What is shadow work and why? I'm getting this question a lot. And shadow work for me is a very, very vital part of my practice. Inner child work also is a very vital part of my practice. And I think it's probably more essential to do inner child work before you do any shadow work, because shadow work has to do with being recognizing your intellectual patterns. Whereas inner child work kind of gets you inside of the body so you can nurture the wholeness of the being that you are. And when you do that, then you can look at yourself without trying to change yourself or judge yourself. So it's not, shadow work then is, if you start shadow work too early, it can feel very punishing, especially to the intellectual. So shadow work should, in my opinion, come second to inner child work. But shadow work, by and large, is this. So, and I want to say, it's not to eradicate our shadow. That which stands in light casts a shadow. The premise of shadow work is to learn to dance with your shadow, to learn that anything in human form or in any physical form that is standing in light is going to cast a shadow, and that shadow is actually an expression. And to integrate that into our awareness of being, that is also a part of me. I'm moving with this thing. It's not like an entity outside of myself. It's just like the unconscious inside of myself, which is very intertwined with my consciousness. Like together they are a one being, right? So shadow work is about learning to know yourself first. And if you desire to rule yourself, which you probably won't after you know yourself, but if you desire to have an intellectual override and to rule yourself from that point, that's up to you at that point. But shadow work is really about knowing yourself. And you know yourself in this particular way through shadow work. It's the recognition that what Jung would call the collective unconscious is where basically this melting pot of all of our unconscious thoughts, impulses, whatever deeds even, they get thrown into this melting pot. And they can basically, if you're empathic, or even if you're not, don't consider yourself empathic, you kind of pick up on other people's unconscious. And it comes from the collective, right? So we are a collective of oneness. And what happens very young in life for a lot of us, especially if you're on my YouTube channel, we learn very quickly who we're allowed to be and who we're not, what's good and what's bad, even if we don't submit to it, right? So I was a rebel, and even if I didn't submit to what they wanted, I knew that I was bad and I should feel shameful and I should feel guilty, and I lived and breathed that shame and guilt. Right? So it wasn't this like, oh, I'm rebelling because I'm careless. No, it was like, I'm rebelling because I think you're fucked up and I'm not going to do that. But the same exact imprint of I think you're fucked up made me feel like, oh my God, I think I am. Like this whole system is fucked. Everything's fucked, right? So if I am a being that learns very quickly, you're not allowed to be angry. You're not allowed to have will. You're not allowed to need touch. You're not allowed to do those things because they make you bad. So just learn not to have needs. Go sit in the corner and make sure that you turn off all of those needs that I, as your parent, have had to turn off for you, for the sake of you, right? This is what we do to our children. Well, hopefully not, but when we learn as that being, it's not safe to have that need. It's not safe to have that that vibration, even that feeling. It's not safe. So every time I have it then, every time I have that need or that vibration, I'm going to feel probably guilty, and I'm going to override it with something better. I'm going to become a better person, so to speak. And in the process of doing that, I'm actually fragmenting pieces of myself for the sake of other people, like our parents who we just want to love us. For the sake of them, I am going to create a void in myself. I'm going to externalize that which you don't like and you're teaching me not to like about myself. And when I externalize that, there's almost this like cord, so to speak, of the void. And what happens is we often attract the symbol into our lives of the a being, so to speak, that represents exactly that which we hate in ourselves. And shadow work is the integration of pulling back that void, pulling back those parts of ourselves that we don't like and loving it. Because when we learn to love our gods and our demons, so to speak, when you love them, your gods become your friends, it is said, and your demons become your servants. And this is shadow work. It is recognizing that I'm pulling back into my void. I'm becoming self-full, actually. Like, all of the things they told me not to do because I was selfish if I did it, I'm going to pull that back. And I'm no longer actually going to be selfish. I'm going to be self-full. I want to see how that feels, even if I don't like it, right? Because what happens is we will attract our shadow, and then we'll judge it, and we'll stay imprisoned by the judgment of the shadow because we think it's out there instead of in here. So shadow work is that which we judge, we actually are. And it will present itself in the external world for an opportunity for us to actually integrate that which we hate in ourselves, so to speak, or we've learned to not like, to integrate it so we stop attracting it in the external world. And this is like, to a degree, it's not about control, but it is, in my experience of reality, that we stop, when we integrate our shadow, when we learn to dance with that, we can be with people regardless of looking at them and trying to dissect their motives, right? We learn then, instead of to be like, I see right through you, to actually be with people and not have to, that their motives basically don't matter to us anymore because we know what ours are. We've pulled all of those voids back and we're not looking out there to go, I don't really trust you. And I'm waiting for you to do something that's going to like prove that to me. We don't do that because that we understand then is just an external representation of us actually not trusting ourselves. So shadow work is looking into the unconscious, so to speak, not to override it, but to just shine light on it and then to dance with it. But when we do that, when we actually look, something about looking, something about seeing it and being like, okay, I'm willing to pull that to the inside, because actually you can't control it out there. You can only control it in there. I'm willing to pull that to the inside. When we actually pull that in and look at it, we learn to kind of love it. All of the things that we were taught were shameful. We learn to go, this is just part of my dance. This is the way that my expression casts a shadow. And this is the way I choose to, work with my shadow. And it is true that all of those things that we think are our demons can become our servants. I would not be able to sit here today and share with you and get emails from hundreds of people saying, thank you so much, thank you so much, thank you so much for just speaking right to my heart, if I didn't actually learn to make my demons my servants. Because you only listen to me because you know that I get it, because I don't know, how do you know that? How do you know that? That could be the devil in me, it could be the God in me, but the reality is that you know that I get it because I've wrestled with my demons and I've made them my servants, and I've loved the fucking shit out of the good parts, and I've loved the bad parts too. And that's not an easy journey. It is glorified, and it is grueling, and it's dirty. And you already know that, but the point is that in shadow work, it is to recognize those demons and to love them and become okay with the expression of your dance. And also, at the end of that, or, it's probably a never-ending journey in human form, but at the end of that, you kind of don't want to rule the self. You understand that it's a self-ruling system, and that your channel that you came to be was exactly how it should have been in the first place. And when you reintegrate all of that, you don't need to rule the self. The self is just naturally ruling, and the second you try to dissect that rule, it becomes no longer the self. So shadow work is cool. Totally do it. But I get the question a lot, like, what is shadow work? So I wanted to lay that out for you today. So have an awesome new year, guys. Bye.